History of Old World, as told by the venerable Hieronymous of Nuln. Dark and dangerous is the world, a place filled with conflict. According to your most imperial order, I am to compile a manuscript which explains in detail the great realms of the old world and the inhabitants of these lands. As Sigmar is my witness, I will describe truthfully the lands of the old world, the southern continents and the new world. I shall also discuss the eastern lands beyond the World's Edge Mountains, the great steppes of the east and the mysterious lands of Cathay. Thus I write, under the two moons, Morisleb and Manisleb. I write of the days long gone, and I write of the days that are yet to come, and those days are the days of man. We are the inheritors of the twin bounties of wealth and wonderment that the old world has to offer, if we can defeat the evil that besieges us. Of the old world. The old world is bounded by the immeasurably high, world's-edged mountains in the east, and by the dark and deep great ocean in the west, and by the foreboding troll country in the north. To the south lies a broad arm of the great ocean, and beyond this the shores of the land of Araby. In ancient times, dwarves and men fought over possession of the old world, and after many centuries of bitter conflict, retreated into their own lands. In their wake came the orcs from the east, who infested the trackless forests and wastes, and ruined the abandoned cities of the dwarves and the elves. Later, the tribes of mankind wandered into the old world and began to clear and dwell in the land there. Incessantly did they fight against the orcs, and out of this long conflict arose the great realms of men, namely the Empire and Britonia, and Istalia, Tylea, and Kislev. The map I have included prior to these pages was presented as a gift to Emperor Leopold from the cartographers of Altdorf. The legend of Sigmar Heldenhammer. At the dawn of the Age of Iron, when men first learned the secrets of its forging from the dwarves, the tribes of men were scattered and fearful of the orcs. In those days the orcs did rampage far and wide across the lands of the old world. From far in the east they came, slaying and making slaves of mankind wherever they went. A great cry went up to the skies from the wretched mankind. Who can deliver us? An heir was born to the chief of the Unberogans, greatest of the tribes of men, and his birth was heralded by a twin-tailed comet, and by thunder and lightning at night. He grew to manhood and became a mighty warrior, one who could withstand 1,000 orcs on his own, with none beside him. Orcs slank back at his approach, and even dwarves sang his saga. This was the holy Sigmar, of which the sacred legends speak. He it was who utterly crushed the orcish armies in the terrible battle of Blackfire Pass. The songs say that half of the green-skinned warriors of the World's Edge Mountain were slain that day. Thus was Sigmar, founder of the empire that endures to this day, and the one who first appointed the Elector Counts. He who saved the dwarf king as well as humble men. The holder of the Hammer of Wrath, by which evil was vanquished. By the mere utterance of his name may the righteous come, and every evil thing be banished. I have included in this tome a legend of Sigmar, the oldest known record of the deeds of Sigmar Heldenhammer. Many other tales are told of the first emperor, including the description of how he defeated an entire army of orcs armed only with the jawbone of an ox. Twice more, the twin-tailed comet has been seen in the lands of the Empire. In the year of woes of 1999, when the twin-tailed comet destroyed the city of Mordheim, and 300 years later, when Magnus the Pious, the saviour of the Empire, was born. Every time the wings of fire in the sky heralded the coming of great things. Our honoured land, the Empire. Our beautiful empire is the largest, the most powerful nation in all the old world. We, the sons of Sigmar, have a right to be proud. For over 2 millennia, the banner of the Griffin has flown over our castle, proclaiming the might and glory of emperors. Altdorf is the capital of our glorious empire, and the seat of all the emperors. Here all manner of arts and sciences flourish under the patronage of the imperial crown. Here lies the great shrine of Sigmar, and the engineers' guild hall, and the spires of the colleges of magic rise high above the rooftops of Altdorf. Herein lies the heart of our trade. River barges laden with goods dock and depart here, and our rich markets bustle and trade with traders as far away as Araby. Whilst Altdorf is the second to none in its glory and splendour, our empire encompasses many other places of beauty and awe besides the capital. The prosperous fields of Reichland stretch around the capital, and farms, estates and villages that dot the fields, before giving way to the all-encompassing forests of the empire. Nuln is the gem of Reichland, situated above the mighty river Reich. Once she was the first city of the empire, and of old the seat of emperors. Many dwarf craftsmen came to dwell here and work their forges along the Reich, where great oak barges arrive daily with ore and coals. The great bridge which spans the broad Reich at Nuln is wondrous to behold, and the glory and pride of the city. Beyond there are no more bridges, for the river is far too wide. Within the boundaries of Nuln stand the Imperial Artillery School and many universities for the studious amongst the population of the Empire. Herein rules the Elector Countess Emanuelle von Lubwitz, a beauty who is famous for her masked balls and lavish parties, which almost rival the splendour of the imperial court itself. Miedenheim, the city of the White Wolf, is built upon a towering crag rising up out of the great forest. It is an impregnable fortress which may only be approached by 4 roads rising up upon its arches. Ulrich is patron god of this mighty city, and his high priest rules alongside the Elector Count. Herein lies the stronghold of the famed order of the ferocious Knights of the White Wolf. Marienburg, the busy, prosperous port which lies at the mouth of the Reich, is no longer part of our great empire. Her wealth is legendary. Here ships from every realm are docked, bringing all manner of exotic goods and luxuries. The pride and pretension of the citizens know no bounds, and they claim to be the equal in every way of the Tylians in art and culture. Talabheim also lies in the midst of the forest in the very heart of the empire. Here dwell the hardy woodsmen and hunters who keep their axes and bows by the threshold of their cottages. The city itself rests within a rocky bowl, whose steep outward sides preset wall-like fortifications. Within these natural walls stand the sturdy buildings of Talabheim. Mordheim, that once great city, is no more. Of this place it is wise to say little. Such was the sin of this city that a great thunderbolt from the heavens did raise it to be no more than a bleak ruin. Some say this was the hammer of judgment wielded by Sigmar himself. Ostland, snow-bound and wind-swept, marches with Kislev and is the bastion of the Empire against orcs and chaos alike. Her warriors are well accustomed to war, and know little comfort in their great timber fortresses. The Moot is a fat land, rich in pastures, and produces much that is good for the tables of its nobility. It is inhabited by halflings, who are renowned for their greed and craving of good food, rather than for their courage. Solland, in the southernmost of our provinces, is no more. During the rampages of the orc warlord Gorbard Ironclaw, Solland was razed and deserted. The Elector Count of Solland fell in battle, and his runefang was lost. After the war, the lands of Solland and its few remaining inhabitants were divided between the neighbouring provinces. Lastly, there is the cursed lands of Sylvania, the most infamous of its provinces. It was here that the dreaded vampire counts rose 500 years ago. These aristocrats of the night sent their hordes of zombies and skeletons to ravage all. Only after centuries of war were they defeated at the grim battle of Helfen. Many of the derelict villages are abodes of ghoul clans, and travellers are warned from approaching the ruined castles and mansions of Sylvania after dark. Travellers should be wary and avoid the cursed soul of Sylvania if you can. The less said about this desolate and ghastly land, the better. Manfred von Karsten, the last of the dread vampire counts, is dead. Long may he rest. Of Bretonia. Beyond the grey mountains lies the kingdom of Bretonia, inhabited by the descendants of the Bretoni tribe. It is a great kingdom, next only to our great empire, in power and wealth. Indeed, they are our great rivals in trade and war. The kings of Bretonia live in the most sumptuous luxury imaginable. Their stables are filled with the finest war horses, their weapons are encrusted with jewels, and their silk banners glitter with gold. Yet you should hesitate from mocking a Bretonian nobleman, to his face at least, for beyond that courtly grace is a warrior born and bred for battle. From an early age, the knights of Bretonia are taught to bear the traditional arms of a knight, to ride and to endure the hardships of war. There is no greater warrior among the race of men, but so at least say the Bretonians. Bretonia was founded by King Gilles le Breton, whom the Bretonians hold to be renowned as much as Sigmar. He was the first of all knights of Bretonia and established their military traditions. Their kingdom is divided into 14 great dukedoms, from the fair Couronne in the north to the ragged lands of Carcassonne in the south. Each of these powerful dukes commands an army of knights supported by squires, men-at-arms, and archers drawn from the ranks of commoners. This way of fighting, though old-fashioned in our empire, has proven time and time again effective in repelling numerous invading armies. It is the ideal of knighthood, which inspires the warriors of Bretonia. The worship of the Lady of the Lake, their goddess of virtue and honour, is widespread, and sets the code of honour under which the finest of nobility conducts itself in peace and war. Whilst most of the Bretonians are rural folk, there are still numerous walled cities. The capital, Couronne, with its marble temples, Paravon, which guards the Axbite Pass, Gisot, which protects the reaches of Upper Gristmeal River, and Queilen, with its chapels and vineyards, and lastly the dreaded city of Moussoline, a squalid ruin which is now a lair of evil creatures. Bordelot, Lenguille, and Brionne, the coastal cities of Bretonia, are trading ports and havens for the dreaded war fleet of Bretonia, and control much of the wealth of the city. Of Kislev. North from the lands of our magnificent empire, the forests give way to great wind-swept plains and dark birch glades. These are the lands of Kislev. For 1,000 years this kingdom has endured the attacks of the savage Norse and the incursions of dread chaos. During the long winter nights, the men of Kislev, known as gospodars, gather around their log cottages, remembering the glory of the Tsars of old and the might of the ice queens of bygone ages. They sing songs of war and dream of happier times, for their own age is filled with much strife. Kislev guards the borderlands of the north against the terrible servants of chaos. Each year the northern borders are harder to defend. Each year the toll of death is greater, but to Kislevites this matters not. North is their home, and if they cannot live there, they will die there. Kislevites are great warriors and magnificent horsemen. They tirelessly patrol the northern border along the forbidding Troll country, trying to keep the rampaging chaos war bands in check. The cities of Kislev are ruled by the Tsars and Boyars who owe their fealty to the overlord of Kislev, Tazina Catherine the Great. The current ruler of Kislev is a mighty sorceress, mistress of the cold winds and ice of the north. She is known for both her beauty and her haughty and cold manners, which have earned her the title of Ice Queen of Kislev. So suffused with this and her magic, it is said that her flesh is cold to touch, and she rules her land with icy efficiency. Erengrad is one of the greatest trading ports of the old world. Here the wares of the north are traded with merchants from Bretonia, Tylea, Estalia, and of course our own noble empire. The city of Prague has an evil reputation, for during the last great war against chaos, the city was overrun with the servants of the ruinous powers and twisted beyond recognition. After Magnus the Pious defeated the forces of the dark gods, the city was razed to the ground and then rebuilt. But chaos returned. Travellers tell tales in hushed tones, and cries of agony pierce the night, and faces that appear in the walls of buildings to consume the unwary with savage ferocity. The citizens of Prague are forced to burn down and rebuild their homes if they are to retain some small measure of sanity. Of Tylea and Estalia. South of the Empire and Bretonia lie the lands of Tylea and Estalia. cutthroats and sellswords to a man. Tylians offer their services as mercenaries when no wars are waged in their own country. For in this land each city is a separate principality in unfettered rivalry with its neighbours. Every merchant prince looks to himself and his own wealth, and seeks only to stab and poison his neighbours, whilst extending the hand of friendship. In some cities the citizens, tiring of their own corrupt nobility, overthrew the princes to rule themselves as a republic. Yet even there is a dagger that rules. Despite this, the Tylians are cultured people, expert in all the arts and master seafarers. Their explorers have discovered many lands. Mention must be made of Sartosa, which is an island near to Tylea, inhabited entirely by pirates. Though they plague the seas thereabouts, they are a fitting match for the cruel corsairs of Araby, and both are much deserving of each other. Tylian wines fetch high prices throughout the old world, and their large fleet of merchant vessels ply the seas, trading with all nations from the north of Kislev to the scorched lands of Araby. Arts, sciences, innovations, and music are all strongly supported by the princes of these city-states. Of Estalia, little is to be said, for it is a rugged place. Within its few fortified cities live hardy people who make their living with fishing and trade. Jafar, the Sultan of Araby, once invaded that land and nearly conquered it, but for the great army of knights which came to drive out his hordes. It is said that the Estalians are a very hardy folk, who will slay a man for mistaking them for a Tylian, or even greeting them in the Tylian dialect by mistake.